The fog rolled in from the Venetian lagoon, clinging to the ancient stones and creeping through narrow alleyways. In this city of masks and secrets, a young Giacomo Casanova learned his first lessons. Venice was his stage, teaching him that appearance was everything, and a well-told story could outshine the truth. Born to a family of actors, Casanova understood performance from a young age. He saw how costumes and clever lines could transform a person, and learned to read an audience. His life was not one of privilege, but of constant performance, winning over a crowd every night. Casanova took these lessons from the stage and applied them to the grand theater of European society. His early life was a whirlwind of roles: student, cleric, soldier, musician. Each role was a costume, each experience another layer to his persona. Venice, a city of carnivals and hidden identities, was the perfect training ground. He learned to wear a mask long before he ever put one on his face. The city itself was his greatest teacher in the art of deception. The shadows of Venice held both danger and opportunity. He was arrested and imprisoned, experiencing the dark side of the city's justice. But even this became part of his legend. His escape from the Leeds prison was a masterpiece of daring and storytelling. It cemented his reputation as a man who could defy the odds. The escape was not just a flight to freedom, it was the birth of a myth. The boy from the Venetian shadows was now ready to take his act on the road. Casanova emerged from Venice not just as a survivor, but as a master of illusion. He understood that in a world of masks, the best liar wins. The city had given him the tools. Now, Europe would be his audience. The stage was set for a life where truth and fiction would forever blur. And so, the legend of Casanova began. Casanova left Venice behind and entered a Europe on the brink of change. The old world of aristocracy still reigned, but new ideas were stirring. It was an age of enlightenment and superstition, a perfect paradox for a man like him. He traveled from Paris to Prague, Vienna to Warsaw, each court a new stage, each nobleman a new audience. He carried no fortune or title, only charm, wit, and boundless confidence. The European elite were bored, wealthy, and craved novelty. Casanova saw their hunger and knew how to feed it. He presented himself as a man of secrets, hinting at mystical arts and powerful connections. He was a chameleon, adapting to every expectation. His method was simple: master the language, customs, and desires of each new place. He would weave his spell, captivating with stories of adventure and the supernatural. Casanova became indispensable, the most interesting man in any room. His fame spread through letters and gossip, building a brand that promised excitement and intrigue. He was no longer just Giacomo Casanova, the actor's son. He was Casanova, a name that meant danger, mystery, and forbidden pleasures. The continent became his personal theater, and he was the star. Every city was a new act, every encounter a new performance. He thrived on attention, using reputation as both shield and weapon. Casanova understood that in a world obsessed with appearances, the right story could open any door. He was the master of reinvention, always one step ahead of the truth. Europe was his playground, and he played it brilliantly. The legend grew with every city he left behind. At the heart of Casanova's most audacious scams was the lure of alchemy. He claimed secret knowledge of the Rosicrucians and hinted at powers to transform base metals into gold. This was not just a trick, it was a grand performance. He studied the occult, memorized mystical jargon, and made his act believable through meticulous detail. The process, he explained, was long and complex, requiring rare ingredients and, of course, significant investment. He sold hope, not results. Elaborate laboratories, bubbling concoctions, and ancient books set the stage. His targets were educated, powerful, but greedy and superstitious. Casanova exploited their desire for shortcuts to wealth and power. He performed rituals, used sleight of hand, and produced just enough proof to keep his patrons hooked. The real con was the intimate trust he built, making his victims feel chosen and special. He became their confidant, their guide into a world of secret knowledge. The alchemy was the bait, the relationship was the trap. Casanova sold dreams, and his audience paid dearly for the illusion. The Marquise d'Orphée was Casanova's masterpiece. An eccentric, wealthy French aristocrat obsessed with the occult, she believed Casanova was her spiritual guide. He confirmed her wildest beliefs, claiming to be a high-ranking Rosicrucian in contact with powerful spirits. He promised her a bizarre spiritual transformation, rebirth as a man through a mystical ritual. For years he bled her dry, demanding vast sums for rare ingredients and elaborate ceremonies. He staged seances and magical displays using accomplices and theatrical tricks. The more she invested, the deeper she fell into the fantasy. Casanova managed her doubts, orchestrated every detail, and kept the con alive. The affair shows him at his most daring and cruel, twisting spiritual hopes into a long, lucrative scam. The Marquise d'Urfé became a partner in her own deception. Casanova's genius was not just in the lie, but in making his victims complicit. The story of the Marquise is the ultimate example of his blend of charm, intellect, and theatrical fraud. It was his most devastatingly effective con. Casanova's deceptions sometimes targeted entire nations. In Paris, he convinced the French government to let him establish a state lottery. It was a legal scam, preying on the public's hope for sudden fortune. Casanova became the public face of the enterprise, using his flair for performance to make it a massive success. The state profited, and so did he, skimming from the top and running several lottery offices. He turned con artist skills into a legitimate business, gaining credibility and access to the powerful. He lived like a prince, opening doors to new ventures like a silk painting factory. But his success was built on sand. Quick gains, not stability. The factory failed, and enemies at court grew suspicious. The lottery, though profitable, was still a form of mass deception. Casanova understood that the desire for something for nothing was universal. He exploited it on a national scale, proving his talents worked on systems as well as people. The ultimate con making the establishment believe he was one of them. But every scheme had its limits. Casanova the lover and Casanova the conman were inseparable. His romantic conquests were tools, access, information, leverage. Seduction disarmed targets and wove him into their lives. A love affair could unlock a fortune. He played the romantic hero to perfection, but often as a prelude to a scam. He won women's trust, then used them to reach their family's wealth. Sometimes, the women became his accomplices, pleading his case to their families. He even groomed young women, investing in their social debut, then arranging marriages for profit. He was, in effect, a high-class trafficker, cloaking business in romance. Did he feel real affection? Perhaps, but the pattern was clear. Romance almost always served a practical, financial purpose. The grand romantic was another mask, hiding the calculating mind of a master fraudster. Love and larceny, Casanova made them indistinguishable. No performance lasts forever. Casanova's deceptions began to unravel as his reputation turned from asset to liability. Stories of his scams spread. Victims spoke out. The name Casanova became synonymous with fraud, not magic. Doors closed, enemies multiplied, and he was forced to flee city after city. Arrested in Stuttgart, exposed in London, imprisoned in Spain, his cycle of deception grew desperate. The continent that was once his playground became a map of exile. Age was a cruel enemy. His charm faded, and the roles became harder to play. The world was changing, revolution was coming, and the age of aristocratic indulgence was ending. His final major con, an attempt to impress Frederick the Great, failed spectacularly. The king saw through him, offering only a menial job. The magic was gone. The great performer had lost his audience. Casanova was left with no more tricks up his sleeve. The legend was fading, replaced by the reality of a man out of time. The master of illusion could no longer escape the truth. His final act would be one of reflection, not deception. Casanova's last chapter was written in solitude, not splendor. He became a librarian in a remote Bohemian castle, far from the courts he once dazzled. Surrounded by books, he began his final performance, writing his memoirs, Histoire de ma vie. This was his chance to control the narrative, to write his own legend. He poured his energy into the task, blending truth, exaggeration, and fiction. The memoirs are a confession, a justification, and a final seduction, this time of posterity. He glossed over his cruelties, presenting himself as a hero and philosopher. The book became his ultimate con, an attempt to scam history itself. Casanova died in obscurity, feeling forgotten. Yet his memoirs made him more famous than he ever was in life. The librarian of dukes achieved immortality, not through alchemy but through his pen. His final act was his most enduring. The legend outlived the man. Who was the real Casanova? The question lingers. Was he a charming romantic hero or a ruthless criminal? He was both. A product of his time, an actor on Europe's grand stage, his legacy is a paradox. The name Casanova means lover, but the reality is darker. He was a master scammer, using romance as his primary tool. To remember him only as a lover is to fall for his final con. Yet his audacity and intellect are undeniable. He understood human desire and mirrored it back irresistibly. Casanova remains a shadow, charmer, criminal, philosopher, fraud. His story warns us, charisma can deceive, and legends are often masks for uncomfortable truths.